Are you loving the First Class Life show? Then join our private Patreon community. Not only will you help to support our ability to provide you with great content, but you can also get exclusive perks like bonus videos and resources, discounts, episode transcripts, and more. So what are you waiting for? Join today at patreon.com/First Class Life. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/First Class Life.
Everything is all great and glorious. I thought life was going to work like the Lifetime movie because that's what the channel was. I was really offended that Lifetime movies didn't really work out in life. But I felt,
Right?
you know what I'm saying? So I felt like that I would come into this position, and in the beginning, there would be all that great, like everybody get popcorn and we have little coffee parties or whatever. In the middle, there'll be a little bit of conflict, but towards the end, like we all high-fiving each other, and there's carriages and sunflowers, and girl, that didn't work. Didn't know that happened. So what I had to come up with is I had to understand what my purpose was. And whatever that was, and whatever that company was, what is your purpose, Michelle? And I had to keep Michelle focused on the task and the goal at hand. As long as the people who worked with me knew and understood who I was, that's my only audience. I mean, true story. Listen, I took over. I worked in a casino, and somehow or another I got voluntold to take over a department.
You're listening to the First Class Life show hosted by Lindsay Vertner, a holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders who desire to maximize their impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So grab a drink, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Hey, welcome to another episode of First Class Life Podcast, your holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders. And I'm super excited for our next guest, Michelle S. Thomas, okay? She is your relationship surgeon. We're going to hop right into the conversation. You know, we don't have any time to waste. So, Michelle, welcome to the First Class Life Studios. How are you?
Amazing, and thank you. Listen, I've been waiting for a long time to become a guest on this show. I am so excited. This is my time.
Yes. So I need you to tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about yourself. Tell us, who is Michelle?
So, Michelle S. Thomas, your relationship surgeon, is a mom. She's a wife. That's my priority. And then on the side, I am a certified life, relationship, and business coach. I am a international motivational speaker, and I am currently a 7-time #1 best-selling author. It's about to be 8, though. It's about to be 8. I'm on my way, and then we're on our way to New York Times bestseller. But for Michelle, I am just that girl that cares. Like it's this that I do is just who I've been since I was 3. I just never thought of it as a business. And then when I decided that I was going to step out and be me and be a business, I'm now walking in my purpose.
Nice. Listen, y'all, it's going to be a good show. So I hope that you have your pen and papers ready. If you're driving, you ain't going to be able to take notes. So make sure you go back and listen again because I already know I had the opportunity to meet Michelle in DC. And she is just a firecracker, and I already know, like, it's going to be awesome. So let's hop right into it. Now, you talk a lot about leadership and being a Black woman in leadership, and I know that you've overcame some struggles of your own. So let's just jump right in there. What were what was the most significant struggle that is the first thing that comes to your mind as far as being a leader, and not only just a leader, but a Black woman in a leadership position?
So I'm gonna date myself for a minute. I started my first management job at the age of 19 in the South, and so I cut my leadership teeth in the good old boys area, and so at 19, my life literally had to shift. I love the position, but when I sat at that conference table, when I went to those company meetings, I not only was I the only woman manager, but I was the Black woman manager in the building. And so Michelle, just me personally, I'm that person that's going to give you the shirt off my back. I'm touchy feely. I love people, whatever. And so I originally took that into my leadership style, and they ate me alive. They ate me up. And so what I had to quickly learn was, as a Black woman coming into a leadership in the South, I had to know more than all of the men that were sitting at that table, because there was no room for tears. There was no room for mixed words. There was no room for me to come in there with my emotions on my sleeve. I had to come in there and get straight to business, because from the moment that I walked in the door, they didn't care about what I knew. They didn't care about what degrees I had. They didn't care about what I could contribute to the company. All they saw was a Black woman walk into a Black girl, because I'm 19. I'm the youngest at the table. I'm a young Black girl. And I walk in, and it was almost like this game of, let's see how we can push her over the edge. And so I quickly had to learn that Michelle, the leader, is very deliberate and intentional and purposeful on everything, not only that she says, but what she does. I always had a plan. And so to learn that at the age of 19, I think is what helped me to develop my corporate career, my business careers, all my leadership careers, was because I was thrown into the fire in the beginning.
To be in that situation, I know that you had moments of frustration, because even thinking about to whenever I worked in corporate, there were moments where it was like, I feel like you tested me right now on purpose, like expected me to give in. And even thinking about to different leadership roles in high school, I can imagine what you went through. And so the fact that you have these grown men intentionally trying to do things to push you out, what did that feel like, especially being only 19?
Right. So for me, in the beginning, it was painful. Like I remember I used to get in my car and I would cry all the way home, because for me, I'm a nice person. And I was like, well, why does everybody hate me? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And so my father's a military man and I'm a daddy's girl. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he asked me, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want my job. He said, then you can't feel bad about doing your job. And so I took that and I went back in there, and it changed from pain to drive. So it now became for me where, oh, okay, I already know I'm gonna be tested when I come in here, so I'm ready. And I'm an unpaid comedian. I think that I actually did stand up for about 6 years. I did the comedy circuit. So
We're gonna have a little jokey joke section.
I did. So I took that personality piece of mine, that comedian side of me. And so as they were coming at me or whatever, I was like, it was like a Wimbledon tennis match, girl. I was, every time they said something, I send it back. I send it back. I send it back. And so what ended up happening, now this is going to blow y'all's mind. What ended up happening was the men began to respect me, but the women began to dislike me.
Tell us about that.
Because the women felt like that I was no longer being the woman.
Mm-hmm.
I was going in and sitting at the table with the guys, and we would have these conversations, and I held my own. And so for some women, they felt like I was trying to be a man. Well, that's not me. That's not what I'm doing. What my purpose was to make sure that, because God gave me a strength that maybe somebody else didn't have. So I was making sure that I was going to teach them on how to treat the rest of the women that were coming in. But there were some women that didn't see that and didn't understand that, and thought that I was trying to create a competitive nature with them. And so that part became the next struggle for me. It was the next thing of, and I remember I used to say, you know what, Lord, now listen, I don't know why you made me this way. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it that I'm doing that keeps drawing this information? And this is reality. Today, I sat in my office talking to my team about how sometimes for me, it wasn't failure that was hard for me as a leader, because I was used to being attacked. I was used to things coming at me, and I'm having to dig myself out of it or whatever. It was the success of it that I felt guilty about. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like, well, if there was someone else, because again, I am a giver. I am a natural fixer. That is me by nature. It's not the best trait to have, ladies, but it's not really a bragging right. I'm just saying. I'm built as a fixer. When you come to me with a problem, I don't sleep until I figure out how to come up with a solution for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a leader, that's a great quality to have. As a person, it can probably wear on you. But I learned how to create that dance and balance it. But there was that fixing portion of it where if there was anyone in my space that did not like me or agree with me, in my younger years, I spent more energy trying to win them over than doing what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So my next phase from the growth for me, when I started entering into the corporate world, at this time, I'm 25 years old, and now I'm in a corporate environment. I'm still young, but at that time, I had to learn how to kind of put the blinders on and always work on the plan. What is my goal? What do I need to do? And so that developed this skill set that I have, where I come into businesses or departments or companies that are failing, and I can turn them around financially. I can turn them around from the employee standpoint. I can turn them around profitability and production wise, because I understand how to discern the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go in and do band-aids. I go into the core, and we work from the core and we work our way out. And so I built that success program. But again, that came out of desperation. It came out of, I'm a 25-year-old girl sitting in the corporate office with the average person is like 45 to 50, and they're looking at the little young girl, but it's my department, so now I have to come in there and I have to direct what we are going to do when I'm a 25-year-old kid that they don't have no respect for.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make sure that when I spoke and what I did, my work and my numbers spoke for me.
Yeah. Ooh. Your work and your numbers spoke for you. Your results spoke for you. Now,
So even when I wasn't in the room, my
okay,
results were still in the room.
that part. There were so many different key points where that, we could dive deeper on, and it's like, ooh, which way do I go? But the first thing that pops out to me is the fear of success. I know that is an ongoing theme for a lot of leaders, is the fear of success. Definitely the fear of failure, but then on the flip side, not everybody has that fear, like you mentioned, but the fear of success. So how did that show up in your behaviors? What did that look like?
A U-turn. It was almost like I would self-sabotage myself. So, and it's not where I would fail at the job. That's not how it came out. It would come out within myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have a day and I'd have a great day and I'd get my results done. And so when people were coming and the numbers were showing and I didn't know how to celebrate me.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew was how to keep grinding. And so I had to learn and for me it's still something that because I'm humble, even when big things happen and all this stuff happen, I'm that person that's going, but I think that's also just a part of why I'm able to connect with people. So the fear of success began to kind of rear its head for me during the time that I went through my divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think that we as leaders need to understand that we're still people.
Yep.
Your leadership quality and your leadership style stems strictly from where you are emotionally in the relationship with yourself at that moment. You can have all the education, you can have all of the background, you can have all of the training that you want, but you're still the deliverable. And so when you are emotionally bogged down or you don't have confidence in yourself, if you are depressed, if you are even distracted, it shows in your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a leader, you have to be able to control that narrative. The only way for you to be an effective leader and to control that narrative is you got to take time out to know who you were and who you are so that you can recognize the signs. Because as a leader, the worst thing for you to hear is for your team to come and tell you that you're spiraling out of control. Right? Your managers or the other people around you to come and let you know what your downside is. You know, people used to be afraid of evaluation. Like I love evaluation time. That was always my favorite time. It was time. Tell me what I'm doing. What is, that was just me. But other people shy away from that evaluation thing because of their own self confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we fix that? We fix that by even though you're still in the position that you're in and you're doing what you're doing, you still need to make sure whether that's at home or whether that's on the weekend, you still have to make sure that you have time to pour into you. Some leaders make their job and their position their quality.
Mm-hmm.
That defines the quality of the person that I am. That's just a position. That's
Yes.
just a title.
Just
It's
a
just
title.
just a
Absolutely.
title.
I agree with you for that because oftentimes as leaders, that's exactly what we do. And then people break down because it's like, all right, what happens if you lose that position? Then you reflect that back onto yourself like, oh, that means like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy enough because you lost the position and you put all of you into the quality of that position. And it's like, that's just your role there. That's not who you are. That doesn't define your worth and things like that.
Absolutely.
So what were some things that you did to overcome that fear of success and, break that cycle of self-sabotage?
I had to stop putting myself down first.
Mm-hmm.
First thing. So when I got divorced, I became instantly a single mom with 3 kids. And so the last thing that my ex-husband told me at that time was that not only was I worthless, but nobody would ever want me unless I was single mom with 3 kids. And I believed him.
Mm-hmm.
I believed him. And so I told this story to someone else, and I'll share it with your audience because for someone else, this may release you. The day that I had my ex-husband to leave, I walked into my bathroom with my eyes squeezed tightly shut and the lights off. I stood in a dark bathroom for 45 minutes with my eyes closed before I had the nerve enough to turn the lights on and open my eyes. It took 45 minutes. Because remember, the conditioning that he had me believing is that I was ugly, I was worthless, I was nobody. And so I had never, for 9 years, I would just kind of get dressed almost like a drive-by, just function. So my first step was I had to see me. And it took 45 minutes, y'all. And I flipped those lights on, and I still had my eyes closed. And when I finally opened up, and I took all my clothes off, and I had to stand there, and I had to see me. Not me through his eyes, not me through the job's eyes, not me through my children's eyes. Michelle had to see me through Michelle's eyes. And I had to learn how to love myself through my own eyes. That was first step. The second thing that I had to do is I had to stop apologizing for what I knew. I had to stop apologizing to other leaders or other people who did not understand or appreciate the knowledge that I knew. And remember I talked about that U-turn? Because every time somebody would come and give me a second guess, and I would become that, this would be me in the meeting. So, you know what I'm saying? Like slowly trying to take myself out the picture. And I had to stop. I knew what I knew. And I can't keep trying to make you feel better about the fact that I really know this job.
Mm-hmm.
And so that took for me to tell myself that it's okay for me to succeed. That doesn't mean that I'm not a good friend. It doesn't mean that I'm somebody arrogant. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to put anybody else down. It's just I know my wheelhouse. I know my strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so, ironically and amazingly, what I need people to understand is when I begin to see me and I begin to understand and release and appreciate me, everybody else feels.
Yes. That is a key point that I hope everybody caught. And if you didn't, I'm going to say it again. It starts within you. That is my paraphrase. It starts within you. Your self-worth, your value, all of that stuff starts within you, and you spew it out into the world. And what you spew out is what you attract back to you. So you have to understand your worth. You have to understand your value. You have to understand your pricelessness. And then people reciprocate that.
I want to add a caveat to that. I want to caution leaders about flexing in their position.
Okay? The opposite end of the spectrum.
There's a difference of being confident in what you're doing and being a bully and a flexer because you have the title. Let's not do that.
Right.
Because your overall success, especially as a leader, it doesn't land on you. It lands on the people around you. And so you can only be as successful as your team. Mm-hmm. And if you spend all day offending the people that work for you and with you, if they know that you're faking it, if they know that you don't even know how to do it, but you're putting them down because of whatever, you'll always have turnover. You'll always have people that won't be loyal to you. But if you know you have a plan, and you know how to execute that plan, be confident in that plan, but don't put people down. Don't take your title and use that as a weapon. Because what ends up happening is it will come back full circle. Mm-hmm. And you'll find yourself in the same position. So respect people as a human being. And your team, if you respect your team will be there and they will ride or die for you. And that's what makes a good leader. That's what makes the change makers within your industry. And for us entrepreneurs, the first thing that you have to understand when you are an entrepreneur, that even though you are a operation of one, that means there's a leader and there's still a team. Y'all just happen to be the same person. So if you are coming in and you're chaotic and you don't know what's going on and you don't have a plan or whatever, how do you expect to be able to perform? How do you expect to be able to deliver your products or services to your consumers if you don't have a plan? So we have to make sure that word, most of the companies that I came into when I was working for someone else, I came in and the first thing that I changed was the title employee. I hate the word employee. Mm-hmm. It's team member. These are team members. These are partners. These are So even in my company, my leaders aren't called managers, they're called partners.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether they have a financial investment in it, or they have an emotional and a physical investment in making sure that this company does what it needs to do. So let's get rid of the big I's and the little U's, because again, that's where that 19-year-old girl got. She cut her leadership teeth. She cut it in that aristocratic type of leadership stand where I'm way up here and you got to go through all these filters before you can even reach me. This day and time, entrepreneurs, if there's any piece of advice that I can give to you, is know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Know your audience. Right now, the world entirely, especially the hospitality industry, is struggling looking for staffing. But I will tell you right now, we do not have an unemployment or staffing issue. We have a job transition issue. We want to see on somebody's resume the exact words and verbiage that we're looking for. Instead of us looking at the person's skill set and figuring out how that skill set can apply to the position that you have open.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how to transition skill sets. And that's why I teach a lot of companies where we are throwing away really good team members because they didn't have the right adjective on a resume.
Yes, I love that you pointed that out. And then another thing it makes me think about is, I don't know the exact quote, but it says that most people, when they leave a position, they're not leaving the position, but they're leaving the management, the upper level people that they are under. So just that team, I do the same thing. Like, we're a team. Like, we're all responsible, all the way from the janitor that sweeps the floors to the head of the head. Like, we're all responsible for making this unit, this one body work. You're the fingers, you're the arm, you're the toes, you're the knee. Like, I may be the neck and things like that, but we're all a part of this one body, and we have to work together to go in the direction that we want to go. So I love that you shared that. Yes. So you shared some ways to overcome that fear of success. And then something else that you mentioned about wanting to win them over. Mm-hmm. I am familiar. I am familiar with the people pleasing, okay? Recovering people pleaser here. And for me, my self-sabotaging trait, my subconscious limiting belief is not being good enough. And I know exactly where it stems from. I think we talked about, getting to the root of the issue earlier. And so I know the root of it, and I know how it shows up in different ways in my lives. And one of those ways was people pleasing. And I know oftentimes as a leader, that can be a characteristic that we carry with us, wanting everybody to like us. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, just like I don't necessarily like everybody. Like, I am kind and sweet to everyone, but I'm not necessarily fond of your ways or, your personality, and that's okay. And just being willing to accept, like, all right, I can't please everyone. That doesn't mean I be rude to them or anything like that. But whenever we are constantly trying to people please, we're also telling our subconscious that, we aren't worthy of just putting ourselves first and understanding that all of these people aren't for us. And as a leader, we're not meant to serve everybody.
You can't, because you're not a leader then. You're just a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, back to my thing, I'm the fixer. I've been the fixer my entire life. I was, when my parents wasn't getting along, Michelle felt like she had to be the one to pull up the family together. My friends or things at school or whatever, Michelle always felt obligated to fix it. Because, listen, I should have been a flower child in the field somewhere, because in my world as a kid, everybody, it just needs to be butterflies and sunflowers. Just everybody needs to just love and and so that was that kid in me that I just felt like that everybody should find some happiness and inner peace. And for some reason I assigned myself that role. And so even when I stepped into that leadership thing, I tried to keep that pace up, but I couldn't. I was literally U-turning all the time with this person. Okay, so that person said she didn't like it. So, okay, well, let me go back to the drawing board. Let me figure this out and try it again. Then this person says, why did you change it? Because I liked it that way. Okay, well, let me go back here. Let me go back. Let me draw it again. Okay, so, let me go over here and let me take on this. And so, lack of sheer exhaustion, I had to realize that I needed to stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I was going to, if there was a win over for people, back to what I said, my results and my numbers was going to win them over. You don't have to personally like me. We don't have to keep little. We ain't got to be at the club nowhere. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to go to dinner or whatever. But what you will do is you respect my work. You'll respect my work. And that's how I had to transition that because I couldn't keep up. I literally was driving myself insane trying to make every personality, every background, every gender, listen, I was title 7. I was everybody. Okay, I need to do everything for everybody. And so I had to get to the point to say, it's okay for me to know this. It's okay for me to be able to do this. That doesn't make me less of a friend. It doesn't make me less of, or I think I'm better than anybody because I have some knowledge that I'm able to act on. And again, we don't readily talk about that. We don't free people up to have permission to admit that they're struggling with trying to find their path. I used to think, like when I was in my 30s, I was like, because according to the Lifetime movie, oh, I lost it. Okay, I keep recording. According to the Lifetime movie, what they say is in the beginning, life is all terrible and things or whatever, and then in the middle is when things fall apart. But then by the end of the Lifetime movie, there's like doves and carriages and everything is all great and glorious. I thought life was gonna work like the Lifetime movie because that's what the channel was. I was really offended that Lifetime movies didn't really work out in life. But I felt
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I felt like that I would come into this position and in the beginning there would be all that great, like everybody get popcorn and we have little coffee parties or whatever. In the middle there'll be a little bit of conflict, but towards the end, like we all high-fiving each other and there's carriages and sunflowers. And girl, that didn't work. Didn't know that happened. So what I had to come up with is I had to understand what my purpose was. And wherever that was, whatever that company was, what is your purpose, Michelle? And I had to keep Michelle focused on the task and the goal at hand. As long as the people who worked with me knew and understood who I was, that's my only audience. I have a true story. Listen, I worked in a casino, and somehow or another I got volunteered to take over a department. And so I decided that I was going to go and have an interview with each and every one of them. And we got down to the last 2 people. And so it was time for the lady to come in to do her interview. But the gentleman that I just had an interview with, he just stayed. And I was like, he said, she's not going to talk to you. Okay. So I was looking at her, asking her questions, but he was on the other side of the table answering. Because all she did was she was just sitting there. And so the one thing that happened when we got finished with the little questions or whatever, the one thing she said was, you came from HR and I don't like you and I'll never trust you, I'm going to keep my job. I'm going to do my job. But don't think that we'll ever have a conversation. Literally. So I went in again. This is the new Michelle. This is years after going, because the old Michelle would have crumbled. I would have fell in the fetal position on the floor. Oh my God, she doesn't like me. But what? Listen. First of all, I didn't want the job in the first place, but this is what they told me I was doing. So we just gonna have to work it out. So we just gonna have to roll together. So I went into the department. I figured out what the problem was, and most of the time, leaders, listen closely. Most of the time, 99% of the time, if you have team members that are disgruntled, that are upset, that are not performing, it is because at some point in time, the leadership has let them down. It may not have been you that let them down, but someone has let them down. So I went into the department. I did what I needed to do. And our department, all the dysfunction and everything, it completely turned around. It became one of the best departments in the company or whatever. And to this day, and I'm not going to get emotional, but to this day, that very woman, no matter what state I move to, no matter what happens with my family, no matter where we are, she is always checking on me.
Aww.
She always. If I call her right now, we're in different states, she will get on the plane, bus, train, or whatever, and she will come to be with my family. She is one of the most supportive people that I know. But that's how we introduce ourselves. That's how we met. And it was because there have been so many promises and so many people that came and did what they need to do and said what, the political thing, they said all the great things, and then they got into the department and then they really didn't care. But they said, I'm going to be here with you. So that was wonderful for me. I have a wonderful woman that is still with me today. She has followed me across the country. And the words that she said to me when I met her was, good luck. I was like, oh. I'm like, we're going to do this. And she was like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But again, she was that person that she followed the rules, but her leadership didn't. And so every time that she would follow the rules and the team would go and tell on her, her manager would leave her out there to dry. And so my ownership to her and that whole team was, one thing I will tell you is I empower you to make a decision. Now, we may have to come back later on. I'll be like, girl, don't you ever do that again. That was terrible. But that's behind closed doors. In this office, we can cry it out, we can cuss it out, we can laugh it out, we can do whatever. But when we hit the floor, we are one team. And whatever decision that you make, I will back it. When it comes to anybody above me, I will protect it. I will never step aside and let anybody come at you. And so she saw that I'm not perfect. I don't know it all. Most of the time they wouldn't let me do anything anyway because I'm that person. I'm a little special. So they'd be like, oh God, don't let Michelle do it. But what they didn't know about me was that my word was my bond. And if I told you that I was going to be there, we're going to ride this out. I'm not going to leave you hanging. And so,
yeah, I feel like that is a great quality of phenomenal leaders.
And some leaders miss that. They miss that. They get so caught up in the fact that I'm the boss. I know it all. That's not the case. You can't do it all. You can't know it all. And when you begin to ostracize your team, when you begin to treat them like they are disposable, your team will never stay loyal to you. Never. So get your ego out of your leadership. Take the ego out.
Yep. And they won't go to battle for you when you're not present. When you are a great leader, you are building a team of other great leaders, of more great leaders. And that doesn't mean that you're building people to come and replace you, because we all have our different gifts and our different skills and our different values. And you are building people up in their gift, in their purpose. And y'all come together to make the body move.
Right. But here's the thing. Listen, I want somebody to replace me. Because that
Mm-hmm.
means that if I was able to get you to the point to replace me, that means that I should also be moving too. The only person that should be concerned about being replaced is the person that is determined not to continue to learn.
Stay a student.
You gotta be elastic with this. You have to be pliable. You have to be ready for the next position. And listen, there are times that you are great and comfortable in your positions and it feels good and everything, and then life shakes it up where you now go somewhere else. But that's that elasticity, that's stretching your leadership role. Don't ever knock that. Don't
Mm-hmm.
knock growth. Because we all, whether your boss will tell you or your boss's boss will tell you, every last person that walks into a new position has the same feeling. They're concerned on whether they can do it or not. They just don't show it. Go
Mm-hmm.
into that position and own that position. And if you don't have the resources to own that position, learn. Be a sponge. But don't shy away from growth. I've seen so many people that won't take a promotion or something because they feel like that, okay, well, I'm going to fail at that. Why?
Right. Go forward.
I mean, listen. If anything, y'all Google some stuff. That's not the best business. But I'm just saying, get yourself to the point that when you step into a role, research, dig in.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't know, be willing to be a fly on the wall and learn it.
Great advice. Listen, this is what we're all about on the First Class Life podcast. It's just helping you in all the ways, dropping the gems. Like I said, I hope y'all was taking y'all notes. And there is definitely another key point that I want to dive into. And before we shift gears here, I want us to play a little game. Okay, you up for a game? Hey, I take that as a yes. Looking for amazing products to help boost your first class lifestyle? Then head over to firstclasslifeshop.com, where you can treat yourself to personal development books and workbooks, lifestyle affirmation cards, adult coloring books, mugs, notebooks, hoodies, t-shirts, leggings, and more. All products were designed to help you master your mindset, walk in your purpose, and live your first class life because you deserve it. So treat yourself today at firstclasslifeshop.com. Again, that's firstclasslifeshop.com.
Okay, Ronnie, what you got?
Okay, let me pull up my stopwatch. So we are going to play First Class Favorites. And how it works is I'm just going to ask, what's your favorite? Fill in the blank. Okay? You have 10 seconds to answer it. Now listen, for those of y'all that maybe want to turn this into a 21 and over game, if she does not make the 10 seconds, you got to take a shot of something, whether that's a shot of water, a shot of whiskey, whatever your choice is, okay? Now, we like to have fun on the First Class Live podcast here. So I have my timer ready, and listen. Some of these answers, we actually have a running list of all of the podcast guests so that you can reference them back. But if you want to see that list, you got to make sure that you are a member of our community and sign up on our Patreon community so that you can get access to our First Class Favorites books, our First Class Favorites playlists, and things like that, okay? So let's get started. All right. What is your favorite book? We got to start there. Go.
Okay. Real talk of today's blended family.
Oh, listen. And halfway there, okay? So reset. What is your favorite movie? Go.
Steel Magnolias.
Steel Magnolias. Y'all, listen.
I like them spicy old girls. I love it. Go ahead.
Look, she's keeping y'all safe over there, okay? So, what is your favorite song? Go.
I believe.
Oh! Barely got it. Literally, it's the buzzer. I believe by.
Is that Fantasia?
It depends on which version you're talking about.
Fantasia has her version, and then somebody else just came up with it. There's a gospel group that just, I believe, I believe, I believe.
So you like the Fantasia version?
Fantasia's version is my thing, girl. I was crying the whole thing.
Got it.
She's from North Carolina, so we gotta support the North Carolina girls.
What is your favorite food? Go. Dessert. More specifically?
You can't tell. Girl, do it. That's all I need. That's all you need to be taking. Anybody in your audience, does she look like she turned down any food? Okay? I got one. And I told my husband eats a lot of healthy stuff, and I'm like, listen, I got one shot at this life thing, and if I gotta eat cardboard and fluff, why am I doing this? Just saying.
Mm-hmm. I get it, because I am a foodie and I like all the flavors. So, technically, you missed that one though. You missed that buzzer. So for anybody that may or may not be playing a little game while you're listening, take a shot.
I need y'all to call in and protect me. I think dessert is a food. Don't y'all think? Okay, okay, go ahead.
So many different ways you can go with dessert. Okay, what is your favorite place to travel? Go.
Hawaii.
Ooh, Hawaii. That is one place I have not yet been. Every time I think about something, like if it comes up, something else trumps it before I get there. So, okay. What is your favorite joke?
The whole joke or the joke person? I don't understand. Tell the joke?
Well, so, all right. I'm going to give you grace on that one because that was a very vague first class favorite option right there. But you said you had been on the comedian, so I thought, ooh, maybe we could throw that one in there. We're going to circle back to that one because now you guys to tell a joke for us, okay?
All right.
So before we do that, what is your favorite relaxing activity? Go.
Sleep. Well, to relax, I like to recline and watch a good movie. That's my thing.
Okay. There we go. And then, what's your favorite color?
This month is blue.
This month is blue. That was a little bonus one right there. All right. Thanks for playing our first class favorites game. And as I mentioned, we have a running list of favorite books, our playlist, and relaxing activities and places to travel. So again, if you want access to that list, you got to make sure you join our community via Patreon. So let's hop back into it. Before we go back to this discussion, share with us a little jokey joke.
So my comedic style, when I did stand up, my stand up literally was talking. I tell stories. So my family, like people think that I wrote this stuff, but this is just kind of how my life was. So let me tell you about my mother. My mother is the only Black June Cleaver ever in the world. That's a heart. Like she knows cookies and biscuits or whatever. And so my father is like the polar opposite. My father's a military man, world traveler, whatever. And I keep telling him that he's going to hell for playing these games on his wife. So my mother calls me one day and she said, there are two phone calls I'm going to tell you about. My mother called me one day and she was like, Miss Shay, let me tell you how important your daddy is. I said, how important is it? She said, girl, every afternoon, the little girl from J.C. Penney's calls just to check and see if your daddy wants to place an order. I'm gonna call you right back, Mama. just wanted to see if he wants to play some. Second thing, again, my parents. My mother calls me. This was Christmas time. My mother calls me and she said, Michelle, the railroad has your daddy working so many overtime hours. I haven't seen him in 2 days. I'm gonna call you right back, Mom. Because my father was sitting on my love seat looking at me on the phone. I said, did you not tell my mama that you was going out of town? He was like, no, why would she was on the phone? You let my mama sit on the phone for 2 days. 2 days. Just sitting there holding up her shout. Just sitting there with a little. He in Texas somewhere playing with the grandkids. So when I did my stand-up, I just talked about my day. I talked about what happened in my moment, what was going on with my family, with my friends. Every single day, listen, we have 7 kids. You call them yours, mine, ours, and theirs. That's what I call my kids. But in my house, at one time there was 7 kids. There was 2 dogs, a cat, a partridge in the pear tree, a husband, and it was just a lot going on. So in order for me to make it through all of that dysfunction, it was just the time.
I think that was organically the perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next. And that wasn't even planned at all. Like, none of this is scripted. We didn't go over questions or anything like that. So the fact that it came up this way.
I don't get the joke. It's okay. We'll come back and we'll do a stand-up show for you. Okay, but go ahead.
Yes, go back and rewind and watch the replay and then see, do you pick it up? So earlier you mentioned that you had to turn your pain into drive as a leader. And then I know that often comedians will take their pain and turn it into humor. AKA, you can even replace the word humor with drive. Like, that becomes the driving force that's behind what they do and helping others to laugh and, finding the humor in their pain. And so I know that you have experienced personally some pain that you have turned into a drive, and you may know where I'm going, but can we go there for a moment? Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Yes.
That helps someone else.
So you're paying into drive as a leader. You're just everyday life, paying into humor as a comedian. And then personally, you suffered a loss very dear for you. Tell us about that pain and how you turned it into drive.
So June 15, 2017, again, like I said, we have 7 kids. So June 15, 2017, at 1:10 in the morning, there was a knock on the door, and it was the police. And the police will come and let me know that our 19-year-old son had been killed in a car accident. And so for me, the first thing I did, I got up from the couch because they kept making me sit down. They kept saying, well, we need you to sit down. And where's your husband? And so I had to call my husband. He worked at the ballpark. So I call my husband. He comes home. And if you spend time in my world, again, go back to Michelle the Fixer. So the police tells me that we lost our son. And instantly as that happened, my mother was to the right of me, and my mother begins to pass out. My husband was to the left of me, and he just collapsed on the floor. At that time, my 13-year-old son, had I known what the police was going to say, he wouldn't have even been there. But my 13-year-old son was sitting downstairs at the kitchen table, and so he sprinted upstairs. And then our 22-year-old, he ran out the door, and then the dog started running, the cat. And and for me, it was almost like I was in this bubble. All this stuff was happening, and all I could do was figure out how to fix it. Not the loss. Let me fix the chaos right now. So the police officer helped me with my husband, get him up. The other police officer caught my mother before she hit the floor. I had to go find the 13-year-old and get him downstairs. We got the dogs and the cats all in the place. I started making phone calls to my other kids to let them know what was going on. I had to direct my son to go over to my father and tell him and stay with him. It wasn't until about 6:30 as I was sitting up in the bed and I was holding my husband. Everybody was downstairs. Nobody went upstairs to go to sleep. All this stuff was going on. It was about 6:30 as the sun was rising when there was this sledgehammer that hit, and so the loss happened. Now, in order for me to not completely implode onto myself, I began to go into that leadership function. For most parents right now, they'll think, oh my God, that's terrible. Wasn't terrible. I knew that in order for me to breathe the way that I knew it was going to hit me, that I had to be in a safe space to do that. And it was too much that I had to do at that moment for me to fall apart. Remember that lady that I told you said that she didn't like me and she would never deal with me? She came to my house every day for 2 weeks, 3 times a day, with full meals to feed my family. She would come in the morning and she would take the dishes away from the night before. She would bring breakfast and then she would bring lunch. And then she would get off work and she'd drive back to my house and she would bring dinner and then whatever it is for the next day. She did that for 2 weeks straight. Because when it finally hit me, I couldn't function. Like I had to do things like literally say things like, did you put underwear on before you put your clothes on? Comb your hair. Did you brush your teeth? In my world, I was able to leave my room and get in my car and go to work. I took about a month off. After that, I went back to work. So I could get in my car and I could go to my job and I could function throughout my job. When I got home, it took, my room was my safe haven. And so I would go beeline into my bedroom and I sit there behind a closed door and I literally ostracized myself from my family because I couldn't handle it. It took a year for me to be able to come into my own kitchen and sit in my family room because that was where we did family things. We did movie night. We did, and this baby, Bryant, was the biggest personality out of all of them. Like, he was the one that was always, it was Ma, what we doing? What we doing? Everybody, like Bryant, we call him Squirrel because he was just all over the place. So going into that family area was just so painful. It took a year for me to do that. It took 2 years for me to go upstairs because I couldn't climb the steps. But during that time, I was able to go to work. I was able to go to work because it didn't have an emotional attachment to me. What was painful at work was the women. I had women to come and say to me, what kind of mother are you coming back to work? You must not miss your child. I had people, because we worked in a casino, so it was a union environment. I had union people to post on Facebook that I was a terrible woman. She don't even care that her kid. Now, these are the words that they use. She don't even care that her kid is dead. I had people to sit in my office and say things like, well, you've changed. Since your son was killed, you changed. Like, there would be days that I'd be sitting in my office drenched with sweat. Because trying to stay in that leadership role. But again, back to the fact that I'm not just a leader. I'm a person. I'm a person. I had, on the flip side, I had people to check on me, but there was just those people that, like, how can you do that? How can you come? And so, once again, my protective nature, the fix-it nature, was the comedian. Because my supervisors was mad. My supervisors was ready to fight. But for me, I brushed it off. I would, when they would, like, I had one lady that sat in there and she was like, I just wanted to say to you, and she was all rude or whatever. And so for me, my only response was, bless your heart. But that was my shield. What people don't understand, most comedians, 90% of the comedians are the most depressed people out there because they use, like you said, they use the comedy to shield it. For me, my grief, even though this happened in 2017, my grief is still ongoing. Last night, organically, just watching the show, I fell apart crying. So I tell people, I want to give 2 pieces of advice. For any parent that has lost a child, do not rush that process. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. It is not something that you are going to be able to deal. And each one of you are going to handle your grief differently. For me, talking about Brian helps me grieve. My husband is the opposite. Can't have those conversations about him because that makes him emotional. When I can't talk about Brian and it builds up, that's when I fall apart. So each person, throw them books away that tell you the 5 stages of grief and throw them books away. Grief is going to impact you depending on your personality. And so I'm a communicator. And so in order for me to get that, deliver that, for me to release that buildup, for me to process those emotions, I talk about it. And so don't expect, if you're 2 parents, don't expect the 2 of you to move through this grief simultaneously and the same. That's what breaks a relationship apart. Because you don't understand what's going on with the other person. And so the second thing is I want to give advice to people from the outside. There's no words or things that you can do or say to ease that pain. What you can do is ask. Just ask. Because what I may need you to do for me because of my son's loss may completely destroy another mother. So before you go in, human nature, we want to say something because it's awkward. Don't just go in and as the song said, just stay. I offer to people what wasn't offered to me. I tell women, unfortunately, it's a terrible club to belong to. But if I run across a mother who has lost a child, my only offer to her is, I don't care if it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. If you need to call and just breathe, here's my number. And sometimes you don't have the words. Sometimes I don't know what I'm feeling. Sometimes even now, I'm an international speaker. I can talk to people, whatever, but that's my baby. At one of my kids' graduations, a professor said something that was really profound. And since then, it was the easiest way for me to help people understand what it feels like to lose a child. This professor said, your children are the only human beings that have and will ever hear your heartbeat from the inside. So there's an organic connection. And so when you lose that child, even the way that you describe your family, I had to learn how to be okay with saying, I have 7 kids. So when people ask about the age, I'll roll down the age, and if somebody digs a little deeper and asks about it, then I let them know that one of my babies is not really here. He's here. But he's not here. But when it came to, that was when I if there was another revelation about who Michelle was, that was my latest permission to be me. Not to grieve how the book said I was supposed to, not to respond how people, when I went back to work, I went back to work because I couldn't lay in the bed no more. And I didn't want to apologize to, why do I have to apologize to somebody else for when I come back to work? Why does that mean that my son has no value for me? And so all the stuff, and my father and I talked about this probably a couple of years after we lost Brian. I've been through a lot. And I feel like that throughout my life, all of the things that I thought was tragic, all of the things that I thought was, well, I couldn't survive, I'm not going to be able to make it past this, all of those things was a build up to help me function through the greatest loss anybody could ever experience.
Yeah.
Because had I not taught myself, and I want to be clear with how I say this, because there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, is she saying it was supposed to happen? No, I had a friend of mine to call me, and that was probably the most painful conversation ever. You know, that's meant to be. No mother wants to hear that. Don't call nobody with that. Don't call no mother and tell them that this is in the books. What I'm saying is, every time that I got hit by this tragedy or these things, or whatever has assaulted me, and I was able to bring myself out of it, I remembered the tools. I didn't remember the pain. I remembered the tools. So when the next one came along, instead of me trying to process the why, I went into tool mode. I went into my toolkit and I repeated the same steps that I did before to get me out of the hole. So had I not had the practice and built up my toolkit, you wouldn't be talking to me today. I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with somebody. But I built up a toolbox, a toolkit of steps for Michelle to get herself out of her hole. And so when I felt myself spiraling into the rabbit hole of the loss of my son, I had to crack. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in that bed. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to do anything. But the one thing that I remembered was, at this moment in time, the baby that I had with the biggest personality that everybody knew him. We didn't have a title. Like, none of us had a name. We was known as Brian. So you must be Brian's mom. Oh, that must be Brian's brother. That was Brian's dad. That was our thing. And so, to get myself out of the rabbit hole, the first thing that I remembered was he no longer had a voice. And so when you ask, is it okay to talk about it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's somebody out there that needs to hear that it's okay not to be okay. That you still can be somebody after you're lost. And so it is the toolkit that you build for yourself. And nobody can build your toolkit but you. Just grief and pain is going to happen. It's not about the fact of being there. The problem is when you stay there. So seek help. Talk to somebody. Don't stay in the rabbit hole. Don't let your mind overtake your whole life and keep you in the hole.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to point out to everyone that, like, not only was that amazing advice for those suffering from a loss, but amazing advice in general to translate and transfer into other areas of struggle that you may be going through. So thank you so much for your vulnerability, your transparency, just being willing to share that, because like you said, somebody needs to hear it. And if that somebody is not you, somebody you know may need to hear it, and you are to pass the message on. So just thank you. Thank you again.
And I'm going to say it one more time. Just last night, I cried. So it's nothing. There's no time limit. There's no time frame. There's no embarrassment about it. When it comes, it comes.
Mm-hmm.
And don't feel like that you have to grieve in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It may be laughter. It may be, for the first year, I watched every series, dumbest series possible. Like literally, it's something that would not occupy my brain whatsoever. I had literally run out of these series. I just kept watching it, and out of that pain birthed my book, Unspoken.
See, there is purpose in your pain, but it's up to you to identify what that is. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you again for sharing. This has been an awesome discussion. We covered a little bit of everything for the people, okay? So tell us, what do you have coming up? What can we look forward to seeing from Michelle S. Thomas?
Wait for it. Wait. I'm just playing. So we have two, and I call it a project. God kind of delivered this vision of this project for me. Back to that community side. So inside of this little laptop here, there were 3 books that I was writing, and because I'm a little special, I write. They're literally, I'm writing 3 books at one time. Not everybody does it that way. So new authors, don't be writing me. Don't nobody email me. Don't call. Don't do. Like Michelle Thomas told me to write 3 books at one time. That's just how I work. One of the books is a kind of a self-help book, and that book will be coming out. The other book is when I wrote Unspoken, which talks about the blended family. I wrote it in segments, and so one of the segments kind of took on his own life. So I pulled it out. So there's another book that is just purely ratchet, y'all. It is. I'm just gonna go ahead and confess. This is purely ratchet. It's petty and messy. It is the most fun write that I have had. And then the other one, because I am a murder mystery person, the other one is a suspense novel. And so what happens is it stays in my laptop, and depending on what mood I'm in, is what book that I'll pour into. Well, I got this vision from God, and He was like, write a book. And I was like, what? I'm trying to. I know I ain't supposed to be questioning you, Jesus, but I'm just saying. Like, okay. And so He just kept saying, no, write a book. My kids, every time they reach a certain age, my kids are required to read the 7 Habits book. And so, reluctantly, they don't like it. They don't want to. They'll be forced. And so, it was time for the 17-year-old to read this. So, it stayed on my kitchen counter. And I kept passing this book. And so, throughout a series of just kind of dreams, the book title came to me. And it was the 8, because 8 is my number, 8 qualities of the exceptional Black woman in business and entrepreneurship. And so now listen, now once again, y'all remember, because I'm the unpaid comedian. So I got a clear message of what the title's supposed to be. And I was like, you want me to write this book? What? You know what I'm saying? Like this is me? Really? Oh, okay. So I postponed and whatever, and so I was like, well, what about these 3 right here? And all right. So I started writing the book, and he kept telling me, it's bigger than you, it's bigger than you, it's bigger than you. And then so I said, well, okay, let me do a book collaboration. But once again, y'all, I was like, I'm not the book collaborator. Like I'm not that chick. So also come from Jesus, and I will tell you, he said, be obedient. And when I tell you I got some of the most phenomenal authors from around the world to be a part of the book project, it's just phenomenal. So the book is coming out February 15th, 2022. But if you're watching this as a replay or whatever, it's out there. It is on every bookshelf and every bookstore that you can find. And the title again is The 8 Qualities of the Exceptional Black Woman in Business and Entrepreneurship. And it's a reference book. It is a book designed to go into colleges and universities and business courses and for women to read, especially women, Black women and women of color who want to be an entrepreneur. We are the least lendable in the country. We have the least sustainability of profitability in a business. Most of the time, we don't make it past the 3-year threshold. And so for me, being that fixer, there's got to be a better way. And so what throughout research, what I found is there's a lot of cultures that have the ability to get that passed down information from parents or uncles or grandparents because they're exposed to that business world. For us, people of color, most of us are the first generation. And so we kind of fumble our way through it. But we're not going to fumble anymore, ladies. This is the reference book that you need to have. When you want to start your business, scale your business, even if you are not starting your own business, it teaches you how to speak for yourself within your own company. It teaches them to respect and understand the qualities that we bring as Black women, as women of color. So that's the first portion of the project. And since that was written specifically for Black women, as a woman, I wanted to make something that was well versed. So I created the Exceptional Woman Tour. The Exceptional Woman Tour is for all women of all backgrounds, of all races. It is a global summit that is a hybrid summit, but this year we're going to do it as a virtual because of all the pandemic or whatever. But it is designed to connect women leaders from around the globe. And what we talk about is things that the world doesn't normally talk about. The premise of the Exceptional Woman Tour is that we are looking at the fact there is a young lady or a woman in her mid-40s or a woman who was about to turn 70, and all she has ever heard was what she cannot do. We are here to tell her what she can do. We are here to break down the stigma of what a woman's job is and what a man's job is. We are here to teach businesses how to come and understand the value of having a woman in your leadership team. We are here to talk to that young lady who may not have a strong woman in her presence to be able to, if she wants to be a truck driver, maybe her mom or her aunts are telling her that she cannot be, because that's not what a woman do. We got truck drivers on the platform. We have physicists on the platform. We have bioengineers. We have tech women. We have women in politics. Our platform is this robust platform. It's not just about this is not going to be your average summit, y'all. This is not because we just want to make you feel good. This is going to give you that toolkit that I always talk about. How to walk away and not make a change just for yourself, but build a new foundation and a new generational change for the women that are coming down. Because we are the ancestors, and we got to step into that place. But the world will not change for us as women until we change how we interact within each other. And that is what the Exceptional Woman Tour is about.
Yes. I love it. You got your book, you got your tour, you got everything you need. And don't worry, we will have all of those links for you in the show notes. So make sure you click on it, check them out. Make sure you go and check out Michelle S. Thomas. Speaking of which, tell the folks how they can contact you directly, just in case they don't pay attention to the show notes.
No, we done seen that. So you can always find me on social media at Your Relationship Surgeon. That's Facebook, that is Instagram. If you want to find me as far as my website and dig into more and connect with me on that manner, You can always find me at Michelle, MICHELLES Thomas, THOMAS.com. I'm always there. On my website, you will find the office number. You will find our email address. You can always reach out. And listen, guys, I'm not one of those people that I don't want to be contacted. I want to hear from you. I want to hear. Tell me what we need to do so that we can make changes. Suggest, inform, partner. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we need to do to make changes for our families and for our future. And this drive, the new drive, comes from the fact that I learned from the loss of my son that we got one shot at this. And I don't want to just talk about it. I want to go to my grave empty. I want to be able to watch my child lose his ability to complete his dreams. And so I want to make sure that there's not another child out there that cannot complete their dream in his own.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a phenomenal guest on the First Class Life podcast. And listen, y'all, we have reached the end of our time, but if you want to hear a few more nuggets, then make sure you subscribe to our Patreon community so that you can get some bonus footage of Michelle S. Thomas dropping them gems, okay? So with that, make sure you are turning on your notifications on all the podcast streaming and video streaming platforms so that you can be updated and notified whenever new episodes drop. Catch those bonus episodes and all of the good stuff. All right. Until next time, that is it for the First Class Life podcast. This episode with Michelle S. Thomas. Remember, you have to make the choice to go out there and walk in your purpose, maximize your impact, and create your first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. Till next time, bye, y'all. Do you want to be surrounded by other high-achieving women who are working on their goals just like you? Are you looking for your circle that's passionate about their own growth yet still wants to see you shine? Do you desire to be supported through collaborations and connections instead of competition? Then Cowork and Chill is your place to be. Cowork and Chill is a hybrid of virtual co-working and virtual networking. It's a community of women who are striving to build living legacies. This is the space to create meaningful relationships with other equally yoked women where you're being poured into just as much as you pour out. So if you're looking for your crew for supportive accountability, then sign up today at coworkandchill.com. That's COWORKANDCHILL, coworkandchill.com. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But please be sure to subscribe to the First Class Life Show. And don't forget to rate, leave a review, and join our private community so that we can continue to provide you with great personal development conversations to help you maximize your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve it.